As you glide through the dense woodlands, silent as a shadow, you move with the grace of a leaf on the wind. The soft murmurs of the forest accompany your swift yet silent strides. Darting past a bubbling stream and rounding a moss-clad fallen tree, you pause and peer over its gnarled trunk. There, in a small clearing, grazes a large hare, oblivious to your presence. With practiced ease, you knock an arrow and draw back the bowstring, the string humming softly as you take aim. The arrow flies true with a gentle whistle, piercing the hare's eye, a merciful instant end. Approaching your kill, you whisper a prayer of thanks, honoring the hare for its sacrifice and wishing it peace in the cycle of life. Skillfully, you skin the animal with a swift motion of your knife, then use a touch of magic to conjure a small fire, perfect for cooking your meal. As the fire crackles softly, you sit back against the cool earth, allowing yourself a moment of reflection. How many years have passed since you retreated into this solitude? The days have blurred into a whirlwind of seasons, each indistinguishable from the last. Yet, you ponder if you will ever feel ready to return to the world beyond, or if such a desire will ever rekindle within you. As you examine the knife in your hand, your mind begins to wander back to a time when your life was governed by discipline and devotion to the Templar Order. At 14, you were young and eager, full of a restless energy that found its outlet in the structured life of a Templar. The Order wasn't just a refuge, it was a place where your spirited youth found purpose and your talents were honed under the watchful eyes of seasoned knights. You remember the stern faces of your mentors, the strict regimen that structured your days, and the solemn oaths that bound you to the service of protecting the mortal plane from the encroaching shadows of the hells. Each day was a rigorous routine of training and learning, each night a study of ancient texts and the arts of war. Despite the hardships, you thrived, driven by a desire to excel and a deep-seated need to prove your worth. You even learned a bit of magic. By 18, your prowess and strategic acumen had not gone unnoticed. You were promoted to command a small squad of Templars, a responsibility that both thrilled and daunted you. It was during this time, amid the clanging of swords and the camaraderie of your fellow knights, that you first met Seika. Seika was unlike anyone you had ever encountered. An elf, she carried the grace of her people, but with a fire in her eyes that spoke of deep ambition and a fierce determination to rise within the ranks of the Templars. She was young for an elf, her demeanor blending a youthful zeal with a wisdom that was beyond her years. She was a commander like you, leading her own squad with a precision and effectiveness that quickly made her renowned throughout the Order. You two were initially rivals, each leading your respective squads in drills and missions. These competitions were fierce, a testing ground not only for your soldiers, but also for the two of you, pushing each other to greater heights of skill and strategy. But beneath the rivalry, a mutual respect flourished, born from recognition of each other's strengths and the shared dedication of your cause. In quieter moments, away from the noise of the barracks and the intensity of training, you found yourselves drawn into deeper conversations. Seika spoke of her dreams with a passionate intensity that captivated you. She aspired to climb higher in the Templar hierarchy, aiming to one day become the youngest elf ever to achieve the rank of Knight Commander. Her ambition was not for power, but for the opportunity to make a real difference, to protect the realms from threats most could not even fathom. Listening to her, seeing the way her face lit up when she talked about her plans, you couldn't help but be drawn in. Her ideals, her vision for a safer world resonated with your own reasons for joining the Templars. Slowly, what started as rivalry and mutual respect evolved into something deeper, a bond forged in the fires of shared battles and dreams. As the seasons change and your lives intertwine more deeply, you realize that what you felt for Seika was no longer just admiration and camaraderie. It was love, a love that seemed to grow stronger with every challenge you faced together, every quiet moment stolen between duties. The connection felt inevitable, as natural as the cycle of the seasons. A powerful force that neither of you could deny, yet scarcely dare to acknowledge. But fate has its twist. The joyous shock of impending parenthood clashed with the harsh rules of the Templar Order. The day you learned of your child, you took her to the chapel, and you were quickly married that very morning. However, one of you had to step down. Your decision was swift, born from love and respect for her dreams. You left the order, paving the way for her towards her dream of becoming Knight Commander. You'd only become a Templar because you were bored. You were confident this was the right thing to do. The chapel bells echoed through the crisp morning air as you and Seika, hand in hand, exited beneath the archway of woven ivy and white blooms, the symbol of new beginnings. The ceremony was a quiet affair, attended by close comrades and a few elder Templars whose nods gave their silent, respected blessings. The vows exchanged were heartfelt, and despite the spontaneous ceremony, it was beautiful. In the days that followed, the life you built with Seika took on a vibrant new rhythm. You adapted to a domestic routine that, while entirely different from the regimented life of a Templar, was filled with its own kind of fulfillment and joy. Seika continued her rise within the Templar ranks, her days busy with duties that often took her away from home. But the evenings were yours, moments stolen from the world where you could be just two souls, sharing stories of the day's challenges over quiet dinners. When Aya was born, the world seemed to bloom anew. She was a radiant child, with Seika's bright eyes and your smile, a blend of both her heritage and something uniquely her own. You watched, often in awe, as Seika shifted seamlessly into the role of a mother, her strength and grace never waning even as she balanced her duties with her new responsibilities at home. Aya's early years were a time of profound happiness for your small family. You found joy in the everyday moments. Seika teaching Aya the elven language, her lilting voice filling the air with ancient songs. You showing Aya the stars, pointing out constellations and telling her stories of heroic deeds and magical creatures that lived in the skies. The pride you felt as you were the one to first guide Aya to manifest magic. A silent bet between you and Seika. On weekends, the three of you would take long walks in the nearby woods, Seika and you sharing tales of your adventures, both real and imagined, creating a wealth of stories that Aya listened to with wide-eyed wonder. These moments, simple and unadorned, were the threads that wove your lives together, creating a strong, vibrant bond that felt unbreakable. As Seika's achievements in the Templars grew, so did her aspirations. Yet she always made time for her family. She would often speak of the future, of the world she hoped to help build for Aya, a place of peace and safety, a legacy she wanted to leave for her daughter. And you, seeing the determination in her eyes, believed wholeheartedly that if anyone could change the world, it was Seika. Your home was filled with laughter, the walls echoing with the sound of Aya's playful squeals as you chased her through the halls, her delight filling every corner of your hearts. Seika would watch, her eyes sparkling with joy and love, often joining in until your home was nothing but a cacophony of laughter and warmth. In those precious years, your life was a portrait of contentment and hope, each day a promise made under the watchful eyes of love and dreams, a sacred space where the shadows of the outside world could not reach, where time seemed to stand still in the face of your happiness. However, where fate grants blessings with one hand, it often takes with the other. Tragedy struck as swiftly as happiness had, when a devastating plague swept through the land. Seika was among the first to fall ill, the vibrant light that had always seemed to emanate from her dimming day by day. The irony of her swift decline was not lost on you. The fear that had quietly haunted both of your hearts was of her outliving you by centuries, as might have been expected with an elf. You expected to fade to gray, to watch her still youthful face bid you farewell from this life. Yet reality wrote a different, crueler story. Seika's condition deteriorated quickly, her elven resilience faltering against the relentless disease. Her bed became a confessional for both of you, a place of whispered fears and fervent hopes. Her eyes, once bright with plans and dreams, spoke now only of love and farewell. "You don't have to be alone," she whispered during one of your last conversations, each word a visible effort. "I am okay. I love you. Be free. Don't let your heart die with me." The release she offered was a gift wrapped in thorns, each word laced with love and an unbearable finality. You buried her under an apple tree at sunset. The days following Seika's death were a blur, each moment tainted with a grief so profound it seemed to consume all light around you. And yet, before you could begin to navigate this new existence without her, fate struck again, this time taking your daughter, Aya. The young girl, so full of curiosity and joy, became bedridden, her once lively eyes mirroring her mother's in the final days. You poured every resource you had left into saving her, desperate to hold on to the last piece of Seika, the last piece of your joy, your beloved child. Magic, medicine, and money. Nothing was spared in your quest to defy fate. The world outside continued its spiral into chaos as the plague ravaged communities, but your focus remained razor sharp on the small, struggling breaths of your daughter. Aya fought bravely, longer and harder than Seika had, her half-human, half-elf resilience battling each wave of the illness. But despite her fierce spirit, the end was the same. On a quiet morning, with the first light casting a golden glow that seemed mocking in its beauty, Aya's fight ended. Your world, already shattered, broke anew. In the wake of her passing, you carried out her last rites with your own hands, determined that she would not be just another anonymous victim of the plague. She deserved more, and though it broke you further, you honored her with every step. Aya wouldn't be just a body in a pile. You buried her beside her mother. Then something within you stilled. Exhausted by grief, you awaited death, almost welcoming the prospect of joining Seika and Aya. But death did not come. After weeks of numb waiting, something primal stirred within you. A need for survival, perhaps, or maybe just a refusal to let despair have the last word. With nothing left but haunting memories and a soul heavy with loss, you walked into the armory. The place was deserted, the guards gone, victims to the plague or deserters to their own grief. You equipped yourself with a sword, a bow, and a quiver of arrows, along with basic camping supplies. Without a backward glance, you walked into the woods, the place where life continued oblivious to human suffering, where the cycle of life and death spun with indifferent continuity. There, among the ancient trees and whispering winds, you sought refuge, disappearing into a world that asked no questions and offered no condolences, a world that simply was. As the quiet of the forest enveloped you, a sudden burst of color shadowed tranquility. A frantic fairy, no bigger than your thumb, zipped through the trees, her wings a blur of iridescent light. Her urgent voice, barely more than a whisper carried by the wind, pleaded for help. With a sense of duty that had long lain dormant, you followed her swift flight through the underbrush, guided by her desperate call. Emerging into a clearing, the scene before you snapped into sharp focus. A young tiefling woman, wielding a makeshift torch, stood defiantly against a pair of snarling wolves. Her back was to a tree where a small tiefling child clung, wide-eyed and trembling. The woman's stance was fierce, but the blood on her leg and the fear in her eyes spoke of her desperation. Without hesitation, you raised your voice, calling out to the wolves with the authority granted by your beast-speak magic. "Shaka! Aoda! Back down!" The wolves, recognizable by their distinctive markings and known to you as respected members of the forest fauna, hesitated, then obeyed, sitting back on their haunches but still eyeing the tieflings warily. "Why are you attacking these tieflings?" you demanded, addressing the wolves with a stern tone that brooked no argument. "They are burning down our trees. We didn't know what these beasts were," Aoda replied, his voice a growl that rippled through the air. Looking at the frightened tieflings, you responded sharply. "They are clearly lost, not beast. Look at them." The tiefling woman, still gripping her torch, eyed you warily, confusion mingling with relief. "Are you talking to the wolves?" she asked, her voice thick with disbelief. "Yes, I can speak with beasts." "Haven't you ever seen someone use this magic before?" you questioned, slightly taken aback by her astonishment. "No, I haven't. Where I come from, magic is forbidden," she replied, her guard still up, though her grip on the torch relaxed slightly. Understanding dawned on you, and with a reassuring tone you offered, "I am not going to hurt you, and neither will Shaka and Aoda. This was all a big misunderstanding." Turning to the wolves, you reiterated, "This is all just a big misunderstanding." Shaka and Aoda, now calm, backed away and settled themselves further from the tieflings, watching quietly. The woman's exhaustion overtook her, and she dropped the torch, sagging against the tree. The small girl peeked out from behind her, her eyes meeting yours, a look mingled with worry and a flicker of hope. The resemblance in her gaze to Aya's stirred something within you, a remembrance of purpose and the protective warmth of your past life as a father. As night began to draw its cloak over the forest, you knew what you needed to do. Helping these strangers, these lost souls, was a step back towards humanity, a path you hadn't walked in far too long. With a renewed sense of duty, you approached them, ready to offer the aid and guidance they clearly needed. This wasn't the quiet evening you had anticipated, but as you looked into the hopeful eyes of the tiefling child, you realized that perhaps this was exactly where you needed to be. In helping them, you found a new direction, a path leading out of the shadows of your past grief and into the possibility of a future where you could make a difference once again. Always with love, Ryan.